Hi, welcome to another Mayor's Report. This is an extension of the Mayor's Drug Culture Committee. We had one previous show on Local Live, which we hope was very informative. There are many different aspects to this problem. I first became aware of it very keenly probably 9 to 10 months ago, attending New York Conference of Mayors, where they actually identified not only New York State, the Village of Mamaroneck, but the United States. We are in a severe economic problem with drug abuse. Actually, a new study just came out from the U.S. Department of Health, and I have to read it because it's very important. Substance misuse is one of the critical public health problems of our time. The most recent data on substance abuse, misuse, and substance use disorders reveal that the problem is deepening and the consequences are becoming more deadly than ever. There is an urgent need to raise awareness about the issue. At the same time, we need to spread the word that substance abuse, misuse, and addictions are a solvable problem. We can and must inspire and catalyze the actions. And further, in essence, without reading the whole thing, how we respond to this crisis is a moral test for America. Are we a nation willing to take on the epidemic that is causing great human suffering and economic loss? Are we able to live up to the most fundamental obligations we have as human beings to care for one another? There are other information we have with numbers, but I think it's more important. One of the aspects that our committee has discussed is that there's multiple aspects to this. You're talking about potential behavior modification of younger kids before they get involved. Then there's the kids that are already involved. The problem is there right now, because it's not being addressed so much, there's an average of 13 OD deaths an hour in this country. So I'm very happy to have Susan Batterton here, who is a professional, a mom, is very involved in a personal way on this problem, and Jim Abbate, who a lifelong resident and also personally involved in this from a different viewpoint, but I think has a great impact on what we continue to do. This is not the last program. It'll be continuing on this, but this is an exposure, and this is for the students, adults, and the community as a whole. So anyone want to start?
Go ahead, Jimmy, please.
First, I want to thank Norman, the mayor, to let me be part of this committee. I find it very important. As a recovering addict myself, 16 years clean living now. My biggest aspect is, like you said, there's a lot of aspects of recovery, addiction, drug disease. I think the biggest part that I want to speak about and try to reach is, at this point, talk to the parents. You know, the saying, to be aware is to be alive. You know, back in the 70s and when I was growing up in the early 60s, 80s, the drug epidemic was just as bad. But the difference is the knowledge wasn't there of addiction that we have today. My parents pretty much let me have the run of doing whatever I wanted, and they kind of turned a blind eye. And I believe that I want to speak to the parents, because not that your kids are going to be on drugs or they're going to go down the wrong avenue, but kids have a habit of experimenting, the excitement, peer pressure, you know, and they don't even mean to do wrong. Sometimes you need to be their third eye. We're not your friend. You need to be the parent. And just keep an eye on your kids. Keep an eye on who they're with. Keep an eye on how they look. Keep an eye on, is their behavior changing? You know, you're not there to spy on your kids, but we should always be aware that there is a big drug epidemic. Behavior change is important. Know who your kids are hanging around with. It's very, very important. That's what I wanted to speak about tonight. I think that we need to educate ourselves a little more. You know, the disease of addiction, whether it be alcohol, drugs, it could be in many forms, food, anything, is very important. And the kids that think they're just experimenting may not have tomorrow. You know, this stuff is laced today with poisons, fentanyl, heroin. They're lacing these drugs and they're triple the potency. So your kid may think he's going out to have a good time for that one night, and that one time could be all it takes, and he will no longer be here. So I really want to reach the parents, and I think it's important.
Well, it's interesting because I know we've discussed this before. There was an expression, not mine, I've seen it on programs about this subject, And basically, the person giving the demonstration would say, or the speech, show me who you're hanging around with, and I will show you who your future is.
Yeah.
And that's what really is. And just to touch very, very quickly on the new drugs that are coming out, they're talking about pink. They're talking about not fentanyl. It's called carfentanil. It's 1,000 times stronger than heroin and mixed. They're mixing rat poison in there to the extent where they had two 13-year-old kids out west. They touched it. They tried it. It killed them. It's a serious, serious problem, and it's a matter of communication.
I as well, first of all, I'd like to say thank you to Norm for inviting me. This is awesome. This is an opportunity for us to make a difference, to make an impact on this community and at the whole realm of parents and children alike and families, because as Jimmy said, I'd also like to focus on the parents. I feel as a parent with almost 17 and 20-year-old daughters who have gone through the school system here, who one is still in the high school, how much I've been exposed to through them and how scary it is, how much goes on in this community that parents are not knowledgeable about at all. My children have saved lives several times at parties where kids have been throwing up on their backs and they've had to turn them over, or they've fallen in a pool drunk and were drowning. Things that a 14, 17-year-old, whatever they were, should not be experiencing and having to save lives. And I feel that parents leave a lot of medication in their cabinets. They're not aware that kids are just going to start looking for medicine and pills to sell, to take, to get an extra high. We talked about at the drug committee how kids start in middle school, which parents don't even realize, drinking and smoking marijuana or weed, whatever you want to call it. And then they're looking for more of a high at 16. My daughter Danielle Kurz was here at the drug committee last week talking about how kids, they're validating what we're thinking because it's coming from the horse's mouth, it's coming from children. My daughters talk to me all the time. I have wonderful communication, and parents lack communication with their children. And I think Jimmy brought up something that's very important, is that a lot of parents don't even know what to look for. They think, oh, he's tired. Oh, he's having a bad day. Whereas in fact, they're probably high. They're trying things. Kids start in middle school, 7th and 8th grade specifically. They start smoking and they start drinking. By the time they're in high school, they're looking for more of a high. They want to feel comfortable. They want more self-esteem. They want confidence. So they start partying, and they feel like they fit in. And then all of a sudden, they need more, and they need more. And then what Jimmy spoke of and what you just spoke about is that things are laced now. So yeah, we partied when we were younger. We had all sorts of things, experimental 60s, 70s, 80s, whatever. But now it's all laced. And heroin now is so affordable and so accessible, and we know where it's coming from in Washington Heights, but we need to prevent it, and we need to stop all this opioids that our kids are taking, and all with heroin and pills. People are getting addicted to painkillers and heroin, which we know is so strong compared to any of the alcohol or pot that people talk about. I mean, that's the beginning of it. And then, parents take painkillers, or the children say they're stressed, so they go to the guidance counselor's office, say, I'm really stressed. And the guidance counselor calls the parents send them to a therapist. The therapist prescribes them Adderall for ADD, prescribes them Xanax because they're stressed out. The kids start taking more. You take Xanax too many times, and you don't realize if you took it or not, so, I'll take another one. And then these children sell it to other children. My daughter takes medicine, and kids try to buy it from her for taking tests. I mean, genuinely, ask kids, can I buy some? And the scariest part is that most parents, genuinely, and I say this as a mom, do not think it will happen to their child. Do not think that they think they're different. And it happens at every level of affluence, or if you're
across the board with
indigent, whatever color you are, whatever ethnicity you are, it happens everywhere. My stepson died at 21 years old a year ago, last week, of heroin overdose. He's never even taken it before that we know. But he tried it, like many of the kids, and it was laced with something, or whatever, who knows? We don't know what happened, but I know the other child that died here only 2 weeks ago, he's 25 years old.
Right.
Another
There have been 4 OD deaths in the last 10 months in the village of Mamaroneck, 28 overdoses.
right.
Some have been laced, some have been not. They've used the Narcan. Sometimes it's successful, sometimes it's not. But you know, I think you reached a point which I want you to continue on. It's very important. But sometimes not only so many aspects of this, not only you're talking about the causes, but you're not. What I'm finding is, from the discussion with you two a lot, is they're not treating the ability to cope, or the basic causes why kids go to alcohol or drugs and so on. You know, and the key is, especially with adults, you know, the adults have to realize, you know, it's not only my kid. Some of the stories Nicole said, you know, saving these kids, when they bring them back to the parents just, you know, they slough it off.
Yeah.
Not my kid, it's not bad. Now, if you bury this question, you're going to end up burying your kids. It's very sad. It sounds very hard and very tough, but that's reality.
People don't
You have
realize
to
it.
start.
It's not just partying anymore. You just blink an eye and your child could die. They just take the wrong thing. They're mixing a lot of children are on medications for depression, anxiety, ADD, whatever they're in, and you mix that medication with a pill or drug, alcohol, and they don't take it seriously. And parents have all this medicine, and parents are role models for this. So they take all these medications for their own stress, and they drink a lot. So it's an acceptable thing. But the thing that I find the most horrifying is all these parties that my kids go to that are ragers, and all these parents condone underage drinking. And that's where it starts. It starts where parents say, it's okay, I'll be home, don't worry about it. And they have huge parties, and kids get out of control. The parents go out, they have parties when the parents aren't home, and parents' hands just get slapped.
Right.
They don't have any kind of consequences. So there continues to be more and more parties. So it's becoming an epidemic of the beginnings of the...
Well, the difference is the consequences. It's the same as it was in the 70s and 80s, other than the lacing of the drugs. It's that the acceptance of alcohol at a young age. My parents drank, I watched them drink, and it was okay. You could have some beers, that's okay. But you know what, it's not okay, because the difference is, and I talked to Norm about this, I believe in trying to make kids have a higher self-esteem, a higher self-worth, and work on that at a young age. These should be the courses that are actually taught. Positive lifestyle skills. I believe that. You know, obviously math, English, everything is important. You want to go to college, but you want to make it through life. These skills are more important than anything. The kids, you can't blame the kids. It's got to start with the parents. And you can't, listen, back in the 70s, the 60s, addiction, it was there, but the knowledge of addiction and behavior was not comprehended.
Well, that's just like smoking cigarettes. People smoked cigarettes, and we didn't know what cigarettes did in those days. Now we know.
Right. Today, you have enough knowledge, and as a parent, the responsibility and knowledge of what's going on. And it's not about just picking up the drugs. That's why I said, you know, the drug is the last resort to bad behavior. Right. So that's how, you know, being a recovering addict and being through everything I have been through, I had learned a valuable lesson. All my behaviors, my bad behavior, and it started in elementary school. And we had this discussion at the meeting with your daughter. I remember it well, you know, and the bad behaviors start there. And they just, you know, you excel in it, whatever you're doing. Usually if it's bad,
Right.
The two roads that we go down. A lot of kids are going on the good road. They have bumps, but they go over the bumps, they learn. You have a lot of kids that are on the bad road, and sometimes they try to fall back and forth, and peer pressure, whatever it may be, they continue. I have so many friends that I grew up with from elementary school that started the same behavior that are no longer here. They died from drug use, whether it be car accidents, overdoses, whatever it was, and the other half were in prison. So what my biggest point, and the reason I got on this committee, is not to preach about recovery. It's to preach about addiction and knowledge and behavior. And I really believe that the parents have a big role in this, more than we know. You know, oh, the kid died. You know what? I guarantee that same kid that tried the drugs, even though we don't realize it, if we just were aware of the behaviors. Because listen, addiction is all the same. I don't care who you are. It's the same in every person. The behavior is the same. You can hide it. You can only hide it for so long. Your behaviors will tell you who you are. And it'll tell you, if your family's paying attention, they'll know something's wrong.
So that's the problem, is that parents don't pay attention. A lot of parents are so concerned about the grades. So there's EQ and there's IQ. So you can have all your book smarts, but EQ is emotional quotient, not your intelligence quotient. And the emotional quotient is what Jimmy's speaking about, is that your self-esteem, your self-worth, your ability to communicate with people. That's for parents as well. You know, it's if you don't have this life skills to communicate, to have confidence in yourself, to have self-esteem, to have self-worth, to believe in yourself, and to believe that you have make good choices, that you don't have to do what the other kids are doing.
Right.
You know, those kinds of things. But the parents need to be the role models, not to be like, oh, here's $100, go ahead, go out and have fun.
And you're in an area that can happen
Exactly,
more often
and it
than not.
happens all over here. And here's a car, and here's whatever, and they get all the gilded cages don't feed the bird. So you have all this great stuff going on, all this technology, all this money, all this great stuff in our community, and there's no connection between the parents and the children. Parents have no clue what their kids are doing. There's my kids' friends, oh, Mom, you're the worst mom in the world. They don't have curfews. Well, would you rather me not care? Would you rather me not know where you are? Because my kids feel more secure and more grounded because there is boundaries and there are...
They also know that you love them, too. by
they know
caring.
I love them, and I talk to them. I respect them, they respect me, and we communicate. We communicate about all this stuff that most kids don't feel comfortable or safe with their parents, and kids need to feel safe with their parents and communicate with them so that they can say, Mom, I tried this. I'm scared of this. This happened to me. And parents need to communicate with each other because honestly, when my stepson died, and we didn't talk about it that much, it was at the beginning, it was very hard. When you talk about this stuff, just like Jimmy can say, you know, when you talk to other addicts or people like you find out that, oh my God, their son died. Oh my God, their nephew's an addict. Oh my God. And it's such a support system for people to have that, you know, not to be alone in it because you're not knowing that you're actually one of many. And your child could be the next one to die. It's not about just even trying drugs anymore. It's because you don't know what that next step is going to be. And they could die, and just like my stepson. And I'm not here to preach. I'm here to help. I'm here to get the word out.
Yeah, that's a great point. You know, I like to express an emotional quotient instead of IQ. I remember saying the same thing, and so-and-so's parents let him do it. Well, I'm not so-and-so's parents, I'm your parent.
That's what
and
I
you can
say.
do what I tell you to do. But there's another aspect to this we did before, and which is the ability for these kids to cope. And that's what they have to do. They don't know how to cope. They don't know how to say, I mean, I was always the designated driver. I mean, I did my drinking in college and had a good time and everything else. I just particularly don't happen to like it. Maybe I was just lucky that way. But kids have to be able to say, no, I'm not going to do it. Well, you're not cool. Hey, I'm cool because I, respect myself. I'm going to do it. Right. So the real question, I don't know, perhaps you could do it better. How do you get to a point where you can say, listen, I value my own life, my own better than what you guys are going to pressure me into?
You don't. That's what I'm trying to talk about. And this is not about saying one parent is better than the other.
Right.
What I'm trying to say to the parents is, it's a hustle bustle. We all work. Everybody's working 7 days. Everybody's working hard. The parents don't understand. They're running, trying to make a living. The nannies are taking care of kids. You have to be aware. And when I say that, to be aware, to be alive, a kid's not going to make that decision. You're going to teach him that decision. It starts at a young age. I didn't have that. And my parents were the greatest parents. They were the greatest. But they turned a blind eye. I didn't, so many people have to drink to go out and have a conversation. I was one of them. I didn't realize I could sit here and talk the way I talk today. So what I'm saying is there are bumps in the road, but you have to teach that to a kid.
You have to teach children how to hurdle those bumps. Everyone's going to have bumps, whether it's academic bumps, divorce, deaths in the family. Everyone goes through major stressors, adults as well. But the adults need to learn how to cope too and model that there's other ways to cope than to come home and have a drink
Right.
or to take a pill. and then they go out. It's an accepted way of doing things, and I'm not putting people down for it for a second.
No, it's just reality.
It
That's,
is.
that's the whole idea.
It's
You want
just-
to talk about reality. There's no blame.
kids don't
It's
have
no
the-
one's fault
Right.
that someone dies. It's no one's fault that kids get hooked and everything else. The question is, how do you address this problem? It's an epidemic.
I think
It's
that
no
we have to
different
address
than
it to-
alcohol and Mothers Against Drunk Drivers and so on. Or when we were kids, Nick and Nora, it was cute to be drunk in the movies, and everyone had a cigarette in the movies. And you have to change the culture to be realistic. There's always going to be addiction, but you have to, if you save a couple of kids, it's almost worth it.
I could talk about recovery all day. I've studied it. I'm a recovering addict. I want to talk about teaching the kids before they get to that point.
Right.
Okay, I think that's more important. And anybody that is using drugs right now, or anybody that wants to listen. The bottom line is the drugs will always win the war.
They will.
You will not beat them. Okay, so you have to learn how to stand on your own 2 feet. You have to learn how to, and if anybody is on drugs and they need help, there's a lot of help out there. I want to get that across also.
There's so many resources out there at the high school, at the middle school, at the elementary schools. There's guidance counselors, social workers, school psychologists. There's so many resources out there, and we're trying with Norm now. I know to start. We have a drug committee, and we're trying to make more resources for parents and get children out there to talk to other children, older kids talk to younger kids, because often children will listen to other children more. I'd like parents to be more educated, also to have a forum so that they can communicate with each other, so they're not sitting alone at home saying, I think something's wrong with my child, but I'm not going to talk about it because it's a stigma, and something's wrong with me. I'm not a good parent because my child is in trouble. To feel like there's a safe haven for them to go to, or other people to talk to.
To that
but-
very point, the last one, this committee is made up of a lot of different people and organizations. One happens to be the head of the narcotics division in the DA's office. And we discussed this. The Rockefeller laws are out in essence. They're realistic. They know what's going on. They want to help treat people. I mean, if you're walking around with a gun and you're a dealer, they're going to go after you. But if they pick up a kid and stuff like that, they realize what's going on. The whole idea is to help kids, not to give them a record, put them in
Right.
jail. There's a couple of points on it to the extent that this just came out. Illicit drug use and its consequences are increasing. More than 47,000 people died from a drug overdose in 2014. 30,000 of these deaths involve prescription drugs. Right. Alcohol misuse contributes to 88,000 deaths each year. Approximately 3/4 or 74% of 18 to 30-year-olds admitted to substance abuse and disorder treatment programs. I mean, it's epidemic. You can get more and more. It's not the figures, it's how do we do it. There's a stress factor that is around now that wasn't around when I was a kid. I grew up under Eisenhower years, and everything stood still. And the only thing you're worried about, who are you going to play baseball with across the street, and who's going to have a party. But now these kids are under pressure, and it comes back to what you said. How do you treat these kids? And I know Vin Minotti does a great job. You're not going to believe this. We're down to 5 minutes, so this is going to be a continuous program. As Susan said, this has got to be over and over and over again. But I don't know how you guys want to sort of wrap this up, as not as an ending, but a continuing to another program. Obviously, we can talk about this for hours.
Well, myself, I'm volunteering my time. I want to help. I'm passionate about it. I'm going to the high school. I'd be more than happy to go to any school. I think I started in elementary school, and I know a lot of kids that did, and that was back in the day. So I'm sure it's not changed. Okay. I think the only thing is we have to continue this. I think you made a really good suggestion about ongoing Wednesdays, or if we can do this and reach the public. The public needs to be aware of everything we're doing.
The
Communication.
public needs a place to go to for resources to help their child, because so many parents go, help me, but they're very quiet about it because they're scared. They don't know where to go. They don't know what to do, and they're afraid of a stigma.
They think they're alone and not.
And they think they're alone. It's addiction is one part of it, but it's also preventing the overdose of just trying something, because kids are just handing things out at parties. At these parties that the parents are having, the parties at their house, and the kids are doing things, not just having a drink. It's just scary what's going on in our community, and scary what's going on in this world. But just we can we're trying to just nip this in our own little, nucleus
Right.
here. If we can make a difference, even saving one life by this TV
Absolutely.
show, it will be huge. Because children how many have died in this community in the last year?
Last 10 months, we got 2 minutes left. 4 died from ODs in the last 10 months. And there are other deaths that aren't, you say automobile accident or something else.
this is just
It could be,
ODs.
it's there.
Well,
the
behind
numbers
the
are
drugs,
here.
not just automobile accident, behind
Right.
drinking, behind drugging.
Right.
It's all the same, one way or another. It leads to death and destruction, and that's what we're
Well, I
talking
just want to tell you, we do have, it's open. Anyone who wants to come and join in the drug culture committee, drug addiction, prevention, whatever you want to call it. We're all in this together. The next meeting, I believe, is December 7th.
7th. At 7 p.m.
7 p.m. in the courtroom at Village Hall. I think Susan is going to be contacting Mamaroneck Avenue School.
I'll be with the principal of Mamaroneck Avenue School on Monday. I'm meeting with the social worker at the high school on Tuesday morning, Helene Fremder.
Right.
And we're going with one of the head therapists from the Community Counseling Center. That's a wonderful place also for people to
Right.
turn in Mamaroneck.
It's Mark Levy, right?
Mark Levy.
At both
know-
high schools, Vim Minotti's very involved. He has a great program.
Right.
The kids love him. He's terrific.
Well, Helene
His
and Vinny,
right?
right?
And you're going with the
Well, with Helene
with
and Vin
Radar?
invited me to the Lion's Den, I believe.
Okay.
And that's Radar.
Right.
That's
Right.
part of Radar program.
which is
in
good.
high
And
school.
this is not just Mamaroneck High School. This is community. Rhinebeck has people involved in this. They have representatives that come. Feel free to join. This is a community action. And again, to the parents, wake up, folks. Don't bury your
This is
children.
serious.
It's very important.
It's very, very serious. It could be your child too. Next.
Well, thank you. This will be
Thank you, Mayor.
continued. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Maybe we'll try and get an hours program the next time. We'll see what happens.
great.
But in any case,
Thank
thank you very
you.
much for listening.